I'm gonna continue with the preparation of the front box. So let me show you what's going on there. First of all, there's our coolant manifolds. And here is all those wires. Now you guys have seen me run these all the way up there. We put these ends on. This is just a continuation of that. So they've gone into those manifold gutters on the bottom. They're in through these grommeted holes. And now they need to be terminated into these 12-pin Molex connectors that actually plug into the boards that Mickey has already installed in the modules. Alright, so you just saw me load the first battery in, get the coolant done. There are some terminal jumpers that I need to prep and fasten onto the terminals before the next battery goes in. There is a mating surface. Now this is just nickel-plated copper. I'm going to Scotch-Brite this surface and apply some silver paste. That'll help the conductivity from battery to battery through these jumpers. All right, so we got those bottom two batteries loaded in. We got the plumbing done back here, and we've got our terminal jumpers right here. I'm gonna throw the last jumper right here. It's gonna come and meet up with the other center terminal from this stack here on the right. And then we went ahead and sent some acrylic, and this is gonna lay on top of the two bottom batteries, and it's gonna create a barrier and just kind of a level surface for the batteries to sit, these kind of side-by-side batteries to sit on top. I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in right now after I throw that jumper on. Okay, right there. And then I'm gonna load the rest of these batteries. I have 10 more batteries to do, so I need to do the 2 5 inlet and outlet manifolds, and then I need to do all 10 of those with jumpers jumping from, on one side it's gonna be from positive to negative, on the other side it's gonna be negative to positive. Here's a little preview of the battery jumper system that I gotta do. So today I knocked out this guy, and those 2 batteries. So now I'm gonna install this guy, and tomorrow it's gonna be this rib cage that I got right here. All right, so I'm laying this acrylic layer in between the 2 bottom batteries and the 10 stack above that. And there's no way for me to really know where the welds are until I lay it in there, and I've kind of marked around where I need to notch out so that this thing will sit flat on the bottom surfaces of the box. So I'm gonna go ahead and get on the bandsaw and some hand tools and just kind of etch out all of those little notches so that this guy sits perfectly flat. And then we'll go ahead and lay this in, and it's time to start loading in those upper batteries. I went ahead and loaded up 4 of the 12 batteries going in this box. It went pretty well. It's a tight squeeze back there. But between the hoses that need to go underneath these strap down bars, in front of the flutes, and to these connectors. And then, you know, that's 4 of them that are crammed in the space of 2 batteries. So that's tough. And then of course here, we've got our BMS is plugged in. We've got our straps ready and waiting. There's 87 volts between those 2 points right there, so we make sure those don't touch. Ready to throw in some more batteries. All right, I saw a lot of comments on the previous ones when we were painting these boxes. Why these open slits in this box? This is exactly why. So the start of the rail for the battery and the end of the rail for the battery. That's how we know that they're gonna keep from sliding back and forth like that during driving, braking, and excelling. After we're done buttoning this up, we are going to weatherproof these open slits. cool. So this is all 12 batteries in this front box. I have some 90-degree terminals to put on this so that they can meet up with our most negative and our most positive. And this box is full voltage. All right guys, just wanted to take a quick second to let you guys know that our jet tags have been restocked, and right now they are BOGO, buy one, get one free. And the rest of our inventory has been restocked as well. Go there right now on throtl.com, make any purchase. Every dollar that you spend equals one sweepstakes ticket entry to win that R35. All right, so we are dropping that rear box out for the final touch-up, crimping, and painting of it before it goes back up in for the final installation. Alright, well there's one 90-degree heat shrink. I'm happy with that. That is going to be awesome. Alright, so we're prepping to paint this back box. I have to tape off all of these fragile electronics inside of here. So I'm just basically got our plastic and scotch tape it all. All right, Ricky, we gotta mount this thing in here somehow.
So
what do you think?
You came up with the idea of putting this here, which...
If it's just a little bit past flush right there, this will close over it, and then this will also swing open. Because of this wide body fender, we're actually gonna have to kick it a little bit so that the charge cable that's gonna come off of that will go past the fender.
Oh, dude, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, so you told me you want to put a plate here.
Yep. Throw that on there. I want to see if that's like the perfect diameter.
Oh. Holy crap, it actually is.
That'll do. Should I trace that?
So if you make it out of steel, we'll be able to just weld it, and you'll be able to mount this flush in there.
Nice. All right, so I went ahead and cut this thing out of some like 16, I don't even know what gauge that is. Way overkill, but I love it. So cut that out with the diameter that was that sanding disc. It is perfect. I went ahead and hole sawed for the J1772 charge port and its mounting holes. Ricky gave me permission to use his simulator as my table since it's right here next to mine. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw the J1772 charge port on there, kind of hold it up there and close that gas cap, make sure everything clears, and we should be in the clear to go ahead and weld this thing in. And then we have our charge port located. So let's get going. All right, so we just finished mounting our charge port in the car where the gas tank fill used to be, but that needs to run to a component inside of the car, and that is this. This is our onboard charger. This is what's gonna take the AC voltage from the wall, convert it to DC, and charge our battery pack. Now, what we just mounted inside of there is our J1772 charge port, and that's gonna plug into this right here, load, neutral, hot. So that is gonna allow this to charge our battery pack from these outlets right here. This is charge out, and then also DC-DC pack voltage back into this. This also acts as our alternator. This is gonna take the pack voltage of 400 volts, drop it down to 12 volt, and power our lights, power our sound system, and all that other fun stuff. And that's where these two are. This is our ground, this is our positive 12 volt. That's gonna run to our car battery. Now we're gonna attach this to the subframe. So we need to make a nice bracket that's gonna fasten to that, be able to hold this weight, and this will allow it to drop in and out with the subframe. This is basically what we landed on as far as our mounting plate for the onboard charger DC-DC. This cutout is just kind of a shaped version of what we needed to cut out of this plate in order to get past the sway bar, in order to get past the sway bar right here. All right, so for today, I did go ahead and translate that template to metal and placed it up there. It fits pretty well. And I have room down here to bend over the bottom lip of this. I had a couple slip ups on this guy, but this is perfect for testing to make sure that it's gonna work.
Several days later.
All right, so I just want to take a quick moment and show the difference between our first draft that we made. We decided it would be worth it to go ahead and make a more precise version of this. I got on our 3D CAD software, I threw this onto the computer, made a digital version of it. From that, we were able to create a water jet pattern, the DXF file that we're able to send off to a water jetting or a laser cutting company.
Man, you should be going to MIT or something.
So we stumbled upon these guys. They're called P2p Manufacturing. They have a pretty sharp looking site, and the guys were really great. They called and communicated with me about what my final product needed to be as far as this bend dimension, as far as the thickness of the material. They just kind of confirmed and spent a good amount of time on the phone with me. They were really helpful. So they sent us this. I went ahead and created a pattern in here. We're gonna dimple die these circles and kind of strengthen this, even though it's already pretty rigid. We're gonna dimple die each of these in the pattern, and then this is cut out to bypass the sway bar and one of the rubber mounts for the drive unit on the subframe. And then just kind of made it look a little bit dynamic, to lighten it up and to give it a little bit of a aesthetic. I started dimple dyeing our smaller diameters. These are 1.5 inches, and it went pretty well. It's still very, very straight, and yet it's rigid, even more rigid than it was before. So since the diameter of the 2-inch one is gonna kind of butt up with this 1.5-inch one, I'm not able to get that dimple dye in there on this side because of this lift. I'm gonna go ahead and at least shape the holes into something that looks like it's purposeful, because I ain't gonna be happy just having circles that aren't dimple dyed right there. So all of this red, I'm gonna go ahead and cut away. Quinn brought up a good question. Why go through all the fuss of making sure that this looks purposeful and looks good if it's just gonna be tucked in behind the rear box? Well, the way that we're designing this subframe and the coolant loop is we're gonna include the drive unit and the charger DC-DC on the same coolant loop, and we're making it so that this subframe can drop out without having to drain that coolant system. So this is gonna be seen if ever that is the case. And whoever drops this thing down, I want them to be pleased with what they see. This is what they're gonna see on the back of the charger DC-DC as they look at this whole subframe system. There it is. This is the guy that we're gonna clean up, we're gonna paint, and we're gonna mount the charger DC-DC on that. This is what it's gonna look like cut out is to avoid hitting the sway bar. So now we need to actually make the brackets that are going to hold the top of this to keep this from tilting forward and back as you accelerate and brake. So let's go ahead and make those brackets. So we threaded in the 6 mounting bolts down here on the bottom. These last 2 are gonna wait for the DC-DC charger to be mounted, and that's gonna go through the feet, the plate, and then bite into the subframe. All right, and then this one, so this is fastened in here, and then this mount is done. We're gonna paint it the same way we've painted the boxes. We'll get the DC-DC charger mounted. Alright, so our charger DC-DC is in place. Now, to go further into detail about what this thing does, so it's going to take the wall power. It can be 120 volts or 230 volts AC. That's level 1 and level 2 charging. So that's going to charge our pack at 20 amps is the top current that it's going to send to our pack. Your battery pack is going to have strong and weak cells. So the closer you get to full pack charge, your weaker cells are going to reach that voltage quicker. So rather than overcharging those batteries, the battery management system is going to send a communication signal to this charger saying, hey, our weaker cells that we're reading from our cell tabs are getting close to top voltage. Go ahead and step down your amperage. So that's going to slow down the charge on those weaker cells, and it's going to allow the stronger cells to catch up. That's what we call top balancing. Bottom balancing, on the reverse side of that, the battery management system again is in charge of that. So as you're driving your vehicle and you start hammering down, you're using up the pack voltage, as it gets to the bottom charge of those weaker cells, it's gonna say, hey, drive unit, cut down on your amp usage of that battery pack so that your weaker cells don't get undercharged or over discharged is what we can call it. That's keeping your batteries healthy, because that's how you're gonna destroy your batteries and lose your charge capacity, is by overcharging or over discharging your pack. Now this is one form of charging. There's also what's called quick charge. The kind that we're going to be using is called CHAdeMO, and that connector is going to be mounted at a later date in the rear of the car. It's going to take direct 400 volts at a higher amperage, and it's just going to cram 400 volts into this pack. So when it does quick charging like that, you want to make sure that you have coolant running through your batteries, because as you charge at that high rate, they're going to warm up a lot faster. So our battery management system is going to make sure that it's not charging too quickly, getting too hot, and again, hurting your battery pack, shortening its lifespan. This is the most used way of charging your battery pack. Where you're going to find most charge stations to be able to charge your car is level 1 or level 2 slower charging. All right, that is the end of today's episode. We got the front box and the rear box loaded up with batteries. Next week, we'll be dropping those in. We have a few more components to throw into this car. We are getting closer and closer to dropping this on the ground, getting the wheels spinning. We have some fun stuff for you next week.